This conference will now be recorded.
All right, as always, everything we're going to be talking about today is for educational purposes only, and nothing is intended as any type of investment advice. All right, so number one thing going on, there's a few things, especially coming back from a holiday week and having a 3-day weekend. Usually, a lot of the times, we see it kind of start off a little bit slow, but it's not too bad out there considering the fact. So first thing looking at is eBay. Now, one thing that's just extremely interesting, look at these prints that came in at 3450. So you have 100,000, 100,000, 100,000, 89,000. Just a very, very interesting burst of prints that came back out here. Now, you can see the time frame is different, so they didn't come all in one burst, but them coming out and leaking. Yes, recorder is up, and I should not be muted. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, beautiful. So just a very, like I said, very, very interesting burst. And if you look over here, 3450, it leaked out before. So this would make me tend to think that it's the exact same person that's coming back in. Now, we had some below the bid prints, a real nice burst that came back into there. Now, unfortunately, we can't really use that, but 3452 to 3453 is going to be a very interesting level to watch. One interesting thing since pretty much this morning, and especially since we've came up to that 3450, I know we're in a bit of a consolidation, but 3457 right here, you can see a huge amount of selling coming back in. And remember, I'm not worried about selling. Now, eBay from 31 up to almost 30, basically over 35, is not, it's a huge move for eBay to make. eBay does not really move much. So 80 cents is on average what it trades. So overall, I'm not worried about seeing this much selling. The biggest problem that I do see here, and that when we come in, is the lack of new buying that I'm seeing. So the orders out there, even though that right now they're not really that thin, but they look pretty thin. Overall, based off the volume, it really isn't that hard to trade. So if you put an order out there, you're going to get filled pretty easily. Obviously, as long as you put it right. But just the lack of new buying on the bigger shares really worries me, especially for a stock like eBay that on average trades about 12 million shares. So we're going to have to see that new buying coming in. The only thing that we really have is that small burst that came in at 3450. But like I said, I'm going to need a lot more than that. So based off what we see so far, I'm going to expect it to pop up once the market opens and then end up falling underneath where the selling is coming in. 34.75, you can see another 50,000. So there's a lot of big selling that we're seeing coming back into here. The biggest thing, though, is that new buying. So if we see new buying coming in before the market open, then we can change our thought process. But until that happens, there just isn't enough there for me. The next thing looking at is ARNC. So ARNC, this is another one where, I mean, there's a lot of, it's very, very mixed, but I'm not as much worried about covering coming back in because we know that somebody knew this move was going to happen. 2034 is where it closed, came down all the way to $15. So I understand that people are going to come in and they're going to cover. What I really want to see is new selling. So based off of that, we are getting some decent new selling coming back into here. But overall, it really looks like a bottom fish, especially with a 150,000 share print line at 1509. Is showing us that based off that new selling that's coming in, we are going to expect a pretty drastic move towards that upside first before we would expect it to end up continue to come back down. If you come over here and we look at the daily chart, you can see it broke this bottom right there, which is a real big deal, especially considering the fact that if you look here, this was basically a failed pattern. So a failed pennant that we saw coming in, a failed consolidation. It's a very bearish consolidation. And then we ended up jumping back in. So overall, usually at the end of the day, and well, not usually, but in order to create this pattern, it has to have selling that comes in. And a lot of times we see these patterns fail, but overall we end up seeing them come back. So now that we're underneath it, it does have a lot more room. So this new selling is going to push it back up, especially people are going to be coming in, taking their profit, covering, coming back. I'm expecting, like I said, a pretty drastic move back towards that upside before we end up seeing it come back underneath. Remember, 15 is a huge psychological level for a stock, so it's not going to be easy for it to break underneath and hold. But once it does, and we see that new selling that comes in underneath it, expect a pretty drastic move once again. And other than that, we have some other things moving, but I'm not really interested. That in that much. So we have UQM 3.3 million. It looks like a buyout. Absolutely nothing that's going on besides the fact that it's got really good volume, but it's really based off bigger prints. STAF 396,000 shares. Now it's moving, but this is one that it goes on my side list. It's just not the amount of volume that I would like to see for such a cheap stock. Coming back up, you can see as we push the bigger buying, as we pushed towards that 325 was pretty decent. But when we came up to 350, we really didn't get anything whatsoever. That's a huge red flag. So I am going to put it on our side list. But overall, like I said, I'm not really that happy about that fact. When we came up to 350 in that area, we really should be seeing a little bit more coming in. BDD, I'm going to get to in a second. All right, so eBay we already know about. MDWD, 661,000 shares. This is another one where it's got great volume, but it's going to end up on my side list. If we come back over to the bigger shares, you can see we just didn't really get as much as you would like to see as we pushed up towards that 650. Same exact thing as STAF. So it's certainly something that we still have to watch because of the volume that's coming out there, but that variable that comes into things is just, I'm not happy about it whatsoever. I really, especially with these cheaper stocks, I really would like to see it get more as it was coming back up. So we're pushing to the downside. There's no reason that buying can't come in. It just had not, and it didn't show us, what we would like to see to really give us the variables to push that thing back up. So we have KTOV, absolutely nothing going on. GEVO, 131,000 shares, but it's another one where it wasn't doing anything. Then it just got a decent move. It trades 23 cents on average. There's just not enough there for me at all, even on a push up like that. I mean, you could see most of most of that push was actually selling, coming in underneath that 3. So just not really. It doesn't. I'm not even going to put it on our side list. If something comes out of nowhere, we'll take a look at it. But as of right this second, nothing there. And then HMY, absolutely nothing. All right, so moving over to our losers list, we have ARNC, which we've already talked about. SDLP, absolutely nothing going on there. AUPH, absolutely nothing. UBS, absolutely nothing. And then PDD. So I was looking at this before, and you know what? On the 5-minute, it looks decent. But if you actually look at just the way that it's trading, the way that it's broken up, the chart it's not really giving you anything. So you could see there's too much of just no trading whatsoever, and the movement on it has absolutely no volume. Now, the one thing that it does have going for it is 2350. We can see that we had a huge amount of selling that came back in. Right here at 2390 coming up to the 24 point, looks like we have our riders that are coming in to make money on that pull up. So overall, after a move up, I would expect to come down. I'm not a big fan at all of the trading that came in. One thing that's very interesting though, if you look over here and you look at the actual time, this is a huge variable that comes into the pre-market. If you look at the time, you're talking about 6 o'clock in the morning that these trades came through. So what that tells us is that overall they're building a position, but it's going to take longer in a stock like this because of the way that it's trading. It's just not very easy to actually go out there and be able to trade anything. So what that would tell us is that we still have more room towards that upside before an overall move towards the downside. All right, anything else out there that I missed? Our everyday stocks, most things are down, but there's not really anything that's too special in them that I see. It just a whole bunch of movements to the downside, just not really anything that's like I said, that's too special for us to come back in. ARNC, is that covering at 16? Let's see. At that point, I would have to assume so because the overall move is towards the downside. We're coming back in. I would start, but either way, it's going to affect the stock the same exact way as it would if it's buying or if it's covering. It's just I would have to assume so because of the amount that it's dropped over there. There was no time no point during this time where someone would come in and just start coming. Remember, based off the selling that we're seeing coming in, we're expecting the same thing that I said. We're still going to be expecting a pull up, and then that new selling is what we're going to be expecting to come back in. But I would sure expect that. Do you see SQ making a move up? Do you see? Take a look. Go into the chat and look at what we were talking about on Friday when I came in. It doesn't have to anymore. Remember what I said. What overall, the amount of selling that we still saw buying that was coming back into it. So what that tells me is that there certainly was more room up, but overall, it's getting to its point because, I mean, there's just too much selling underneath that has not been satisfied. All right, guys. So let's get ready for the morning. Like I said, I mean, the volume's not bad for coming back from a 3-day weekend. So certainly have enough stuff out there for us to watch and pay attention to. I will see everyone in the chat room, and happy trading.